I still remember the sting of the cold night air on my face when the door slammed behind me at exactly 3 a.m., leaving me standing on the porch with nothing but a half-filled backpack, a dead phone, and the echo of my mother's final words. If you can't follow our rules, you can leave. And just like that, I was out. Not at 18, not during a fight where someone might say something they didn't mean. No, I was kicked out by my own parents at 3 a.m, like I was some stranger they were tired of hosting. And here's what I still can't wrap my head around. Was I wrong for what I did afterward? Was I really the villain for protecting myself when the people who raised me treated me like I was disposable? Tell me honestly, if you were kicked out of your own home in the middle of the night for something that wasn't even your fault, would you still forgive the people who claimed to love you? Growing up, I thought my parents were strict but loving. You know how some households have rules like no phones at the table, or be home by 10. Well, my family took that to an entirely different level. My parents didn't run a home, they ran a dictatorship. They had rules for everything. When I had to wake up, when I had to shower, when I had to study, when I was allowed to talk to friends, and believe it or not, even when I was allowed to smile. Not everything is a joke. My dad would say whenever I laughed while doing chores, I wasn't a bad kid. I didn't talk back, I didn't argue, I didn't sneak out. But in that house, even breathing too loudly was a crime.
My parents weren't affectionate people either. I don't remember hugs. I don't remember "I'm proud of you." I remember orders.
Commands, rules, and consequences. As I got older, things got worse. My parents became obsessed with the idea that any mistake I made was a sign I was turning into some kind of disappointment. If I got a B instead of an A, my dad lectured me for hours. If I didn't respond immediately when they called my name, my mom assumed I was being disrespectful. Their expectations were impossible, and every day felt like I was walking on a tightrope over a pit, filled with their disappointment. Still, I stayed obedient. I held on to the hope that things would get better. I thought maybe once I graduated high school, once I proved myself, once I showed them I wasn't a failure, they'd finally treat me like a human being instead of a robot programmed to follow orders. But everything exploded the night I got kicked out. That night, everything spiraled into the kind of chaos you only see in movies. It all started because of something incredibly stupid. A broken plate. I'd cleaned the kitchen after dinner like I always did. I was exhausted from studying for exams, and while I was putting away the dishes, one slipped from my hands and shattered on the floor. I froze for a second, heart pounding, because I already knew what was coming. My parents acted like the universe ended every time something went wrong. Sure enough, my dad stormed in like he heard a gunshot. "What did you do now?" He snapped. I kept apologizing, telling him it was an accident, that I'd clean it up, that I was sorry. But the more I apologized, the angrier he got. "This is exactly what I mean," he said. "You can't take care of anything. You're careless, irresponsible." I told him it was just one plate. One plate in 17 years of washing dishes, but that didn't matter. Nothing I said mattered. My mom joined in too. "Your attitude is getting out of control," she said. "You think you can just do whatever you want in this house." I didn't even understand what she meant, but I tried to stay calm. I tried to explain. I tried to keep my voice steady, but when you're exhausted, overwhelmed, and emotionally drained, one thing can send everything crashing down. My dad snapped again, saying, "Maybe you don't appreciate how much we do for you." And before I could stop myself, before I could hold the words in, I said quietly, "It doesn't feel like you do anything for me." I regretted it instantly. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. My dad's eyes went wide, and my mom froze. That's all it took. My dad pointed to the door and said, "If you don't like it here, leave." I stared at him, thinking he couldn't possibly mean it. But he did. He actually did. I thought they would yell. I thought they would ground me. I thought they would threaten me. But they didn't. They went straight to the nuclear option. Pack your things. My mom said, right now. I was shaking. My heart was pounding, but I went to my room. I grabbed what I could. My backpack, a few clothes, my wallet. I didn't take much because I thought maybe they were just trying to scare me. Maybe they'd cool down. Maybe they'd stop me at the door. They didn't. When I stepped into the hallway, my dad opened the front door and gestured for me to leave. It was pitch black outside, the middle of the night. My phone battery was dead, and I didn't even have a charger because it was still plugged in next to my bed. I begged, I cried. I told them I had nowhere to go, but my mom just said, maybe this will teach you respect, and then the door slammed. So there I was, at 3 a.m., outside my own house, with the cold wind cutting through my clothes and my parents' voices replaced by silence. I walked. I didn't know where I was going. I just walked. The streets were empty. Every shadow looked like a threat. Every sound made me flinch. I ended up at a gas station about 2 miles away and asked the overnight clerk if I could sit there until sunrise. He gave me a look, like he knew exactly what had happened, and he just nodded. I sat on a plastic chair near the mini-fridge section, shivering, trying not to cry again. I didn't want to call any of my friends. I didn't want anyone to know what happened. I felt ashamed, even though I shouldn't have been. Around 5 a.m., I decided to call my aunt, my mom's sister. She'd always been the only person in my family who treated me like I was more than a burden. I expected her to be half asleep and confused, but the moment I told her my parents kicked me out, she immediately told me she was coming to get me. She showed up 20 minutes later in her pajamas with a blanket and a thermos of hot chocolate. The moment I got into her car, I broke down again, and she just held my shoulder and said, "You're safe. I've got you." My aunt let me stay in her guest room without question. She fed me, let me shower, and made me charge my phone. When my parents realized I was with her, all hell broke loose. They called nonstop. First they pretended nothing happened. Come home. My mom said, "You overreacted." Then came the guilt trip. "You're tearing this family apart." Then came the anger. "If you stay there, don't expect us to support you anymore." My aunt took the phone from me and said, "If you ever treat that child like that again, you won't have a child left to mistreat." And she hung up. For the first time in my life, someone defended me against them. The next day, my aunt asked me to tell her everything. Not just the kicking out part, but everything I'd been dealing with growing up. Every strict rule, every emotional blow, every moment of feeling unworthy. And when I finished, she didn't say she was surprised, she said she was horrified. She told me she'd always suspected my parents were controlling, but she never imagined it was this bad. She took me shopping for clothes, helped me enroll in school from her address, and even bought me a used phone so I could start fresh. But here's the part where things get complicated, the part where I don't know if I did the right thing. Because a week later, when my parents still refused to apologize and instead blamed me for embarrassing them, my aunt encouraged me to file a report, just in case. Not to get them arrested, not to get revenge, but to legally protect myself and ensure they couldn't just take me back home whenever they wanted to control me again. The social worker I spoke with said that what my parents did, kicking out a minor in the middle of the night, was abandonment. They said my safety came first and asked if I wanted to pursue any action. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no. Part of me still loved my parents despite everything. But another part of me, the part that remembered standing in the cold at 3 a.m., knew I had to protect myself. I nodded yes. Before I continue, I want to pause for a moment and ask you directly, what would you have done in my place?
If your parents kicked you out over a broken plate and refused to apologize, would you still protect them?
Would you still let them back into your life, or would you finally choose yourself, even if people said you were being dramatic? I'm really curious, so before I tell you what happened next, take a second and comment what you would have done if you were in my shoes. I genuinely want to know. When the investigation started, my parents were furious. They called my aunt screaming that she brainwashed me. They tried to twist the story, saying I ran away, saying I was lying, saying they never kicked me out. But the problem was I had proof. The gas station had security footage of me arriving alone at 3 a.m. The clerk wrote a statement, and the social worker felt confident enough to step in. My parents were forced to agree to a legal arrangement where I stayed with my aunt full-time, and they couldn't contact me unless I initiated communication. My mom sent a long text about how I was destroying the family. My dad sent nothing at all. Living with my aunt was the first time I experienced what a home was supposed to feel like. She let me sleep without waking me up at dawn for chores. She let me laugh. She let me be myself. She helped me get a part-time job. She helped me study. She even helped me apply for therapy, which turned out to be something I desperately needed. For the first time ever, I felt like I wasn't constantly bracing for the next explosion. Months passed. My parents stayed silent. I graduated high school without them in the audience. My aunt cheered so loud it made up for everything. And when I started college, something inside me finally healed enough that I didn't think of them every day. But here's the twist. A few months ago, my mom reached out, not with an apology, not with an explanation, not even with an ounce of self-awareness. She simply said, "It's time to come home. You've punished us enough." Like I was the one who did something wrong. Like I was the one who abandoned them. I didn't respond. I didn't know how. And part of me still wonders if not responding makes me a bad person. Because even after everything they did, they're still my parents, but they also treated me like property. Like a problem, like a servant, and I don't know if I owe them anything, not even a reply. So that's my story. The night I got kicked out at 3 a.m. by the people who were supposed to protect me, and how that horrible moment somehow led me to a life where I finally felt safe. If there's anything I learned from this, it's that family isn't defined by blood or last names. It's defined by who actually shows up for you when your whole world falls apart. My aunt did that for me. My parents didn't. If you were on my side throughout this story, please like this video. It really helps the channel grow. And if you want more real stories like this, don't forget to subscribe. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think I was wrong for cutting them off? Or was I finally standing up for myself after years of being controlled? Thank you for listening to my story. I'll see you all in the next one.